I have switched every Windows device that I own, from my freaking awesome RTX gaming PC down to every single gaming handheld that I own, from Windows to SteamOS. And honestly, I don't see myself ever going back. I'll show you exactly why SteamOS has won me over, but first you have to understand what pushed me away from Windows in the first place, because it's something that you are also dealing with. We'll start off with this, ready? Why are ads baked into the start menu? Or why do they keep pushing this freaking browser that none of us use and they know we don't use it? Why is Copilot in OneDrive shoved down my throat without asking? This is a brand new, fresh install of Windows, straight out of the box. And this is exactly what I mean when I say that we are just being used and taken advantage of from Microsoft. Look at the weather, look at the sports, all of this is sponsored. Microsoft gets paid to put their apps on your software, on your computer. However, this is not the reason why I switched to Linux-based distros like SteamOS and Bazzite. All my devices, except for my MacBook Pro, are for gaming. So I'm about to blow your mind. From the insane performance gains I'm getting to customizable themes and soundscapes, but I first want to show you what switching to Linux is actually like. A perfect way I would explain installing a fresh set of Linux on a gaming PC or even a handheld would be similar to somebody with severe ADHD taking Adderall. All of the noise, all of the background tasks disappear. You have nothing begging for your attention. You have your SteamOS gaming mode, which presents all of your games in a beautiful presentation similar to that of any console. The Linux sleep mode works so well, I don't even turn it off anymore. And Linux is community driven. It is built for the people, by the people. And I've been using Bazzite, which is a Linux distro that replicates SteamOS, but has better optimizations for different kinds of hardware that isn't necessarily just the Steam Deck. Another weird thing I've noticed is it's actually genuinely more intuitive. There's essentially a marketplace with every Linux distro. These apps are direct links to the websites. Bazzite, this distro, if you go into the terminal and you type you just update, it goes through the entire system and updates everything that it can possibly update, from the apps to the drivers, right? You've got your Discord if you're playing Arc Raiders with the homies, your Spotify, you can listen to your music. And I'll get to what doesn't work on Linux here in a second, but let's talk about gaming performance. Here we go. Also, you guys don't have to sub if you don't want to sub. If it's your vibe, you know it's your vibe. So let's start off with a game a lot of us are playing, Arc Raiders. And here we are on Windows, practice range. You can see here we're at around 147, give or take, on the frame rate. Watch what happens when I snap over to Linux. You can see here that we're hovering around 180. And this sounds crazy, but this translates into the game. So if I'm playing Spaceport multiplayer or Dan Battlegrounds, I am definitely noticing about 30 more frames per second, give or take, on Linux than I am on Windows. Now, I wish I could say the same for a game like Ghost of Tsushima. For some reason, no matter how many times I test this with the exact same lineup, we're always hovering around 100 frames per second on both Windows and Linux, 113 frames per second on the Red Dead 2 benchmark, whereas on Linux or Bazzite or SteamOS, whatever you want to call it right now, we're getting 133 frames per second. So that's another big performance jump. And this applies across the board with handhelds as well, not by as much, but there are definitely performance increases that you can get. Now, the Steam Deck is essentially what started all of this. Valve pushing on Linux-based gaming. You know, this is what opened the floodgates for all of this innovation and people like you and I moving over. And as you know, the Steam Machine and Steam Frame are right around the corner. And what I'm about to show you with my handhelds and my desktop PC will very well be applied to the Steam Machine. If my experience is anything to go by, that thing is going to be a problem for Microsoft. So after installing Bazzite on my Legion Go, my Xbox Ally X, and the other handhelds that I own, I cannot tell you how much I love my handhelds compared to when they came out of the box with Windows. It is the easiest thing to travel with these things because the sleep function works so freaking well, which is mind-blowing. Okay, it's crazy that Windows has taken so long to figure this out, and to this day, they still cannot figure it out. It's not that they choose not to, they just can't because of the way Windows kind of like trickles down the whole root system and everything. There's a lot of work. Now I'm about to show you customization and other stuff like the freaking RTX build mixed with Linux. But I want to give a huge shout out to Sharge. This is the Sharge Disk Pro, and it's basically this weird hybrid of a high-built portable SSD and a proper hub, all built into one little credit card size slab. It has built-in storage up to 4 terabytes, so it's ready right out of the box, and it also has an active cooling fan, so it can hold those 10 gigabit per second transfer speeds without cooking itself and slowing down halfway through the big file move. You're getting a 100-watt power input with up to 80-watt output, HDMI 2.1 for up to 4K 144Hz or 8K 30Hz, plus USB-C and USB-A ports. So for something this tiny, it's kind of ridiculous how much it can do. I also like that it magnetically snaps onto MagSafe devices, which is super clean, and if you don't have that setup, they include magnetic rings so you can still use it. The built-in cable is another thing I appreciate, because I swear those are always the first thing to disappear in a tech bag. This actually makes sense for the kind of stuff I do, because whether you're editing footage, dumping massive files, or trying to build a cleaner handheld or laptop setup, it just kills a bunch of clutter with one device. It's got the transparent cyberpunk look too, which honestly fits right in with this kind of gear I'm already into. Sharge has the Disk Pro on Kickstarter. 1 terabyte is $199, 2 terabytes is $299, and a 4 terabyte for $399. Freaking thank you, Sharge. Your stuff is freaking sick. One of my favorite things about doing this whole switchover in the first place is because of customization and themes. You can choose how you want your handheld to look and feel. So there's this plugin right here called Decky Loader, and the Steam machine will have this as well. But you can essentially change how the icons look, the colors of the background. You can change the sounds, the music in the background. And then you've got frame gen, you've got lossless scaling. There's a plugin where you can connect your AirPods to your handheld or your Steam frame or Steam machine and use the benefits that Apple has to offer. There are so many community plugins and just like overall good morale support where you feel like you're at a cafe with the homies instead of a corpo Starbucks on Main Street. Now, Xbox is making effort to give us a handheld or just kind of console friendly experience for both the desktop PCs and the gaming handhelds. And I'm not gonna dismiss this. Like, I do respect their efforts, but here's the thing, and to be honest with you, it just does not feel complete. And I know it's new and they're going to improve, and I'm excited to see their improvements. However, they are going to shove Game Pass down your throat, right? If you have a Steam library, just like I'm showing you right now, you don't really see my games pop up. You don't see the cover art. You don't see anything. I have to open up Steam. Again, that's corporate like enforcement rather than like open free will space. And as you know, I have this desktop set up, and this has an RTX graphics card, the 4070. And typically, if you went back in time, if you were to put Linux with this bad boy, you are going to run into a lot of problems, and you will if you're on the, the big game scope mode, the Steam big picture mode. But if you treat this as you would another desktop, you are going to have a pretty flawless experience. There will be optimizations soon from NVIDIA where we can actually use, RTX builds as legitimate like Steam machines, but that is down the road. So now I'm going to talk to you about the issues that I do come across with using SteamOS, Bazzite, or Linux on my desktop PC and my handhelds, because these should not go unnoticed. You should be fully aware. At the time of making this video, and I've been doing YouTube for 3 years, and it's always been about handhelds, and Linux has always been in my head for that long of a time. Even today, there are some games that you're just not gonna play, right? Arc Raiders, you can totally rip it. Battlefield 6, you cannot, right? EA has their specific anti-cheat that is not compatible with Linux. Same goes for Overwatch, if I'm correct, Fortnite. Over time, there have been big improvements. And I do think that when the Steam frame comes out and Linux gaming becomes just a bit more popular, we will see a Windows-based anti-cheat work on Linux, but It takes the people like you and I to really root for that in order for them to officially do it. Another thing is Xbox Game Pass doesn't work on Linux. There's workarounds for sure, you know, but to be honest with you, like they're kind of tough, they're kind of gnarly. To be honest though, because I've switched to Linux, I've canceled my Xbox Game Pass subscription. And I don't ever feel like I'm missing out on anything. The only thing I'm really missing out on is $32 being withdrawn from my account every month. NVIDIA GPU support is there, but it's not entirely there. The SteamOS version of Bazzite, there are problems. But with the desktop version, I've been playing a few games on it and I'm not having any problems. But I know there are some. It's worth looking into before you consider switching. Bazzite or SteamOS or Linux is more or less for gaming, not so much for using it to start a business, right? Like a good example is the only editing software I can use on Linux right now is DaVinci Resolve, which I prefer Final Cut or Adobe Premiere. And then another one would be like Notion. Notion is what I use to kind of plan out these videos. I can only use the browser version of Notion, which is not bad. I can still use it, right? But I just can't have that native app. There's a couple workarounds that you're going to have to get used to. So now I want to talk about the future of Bazzite, of Linux, of SteamOS, Valve, you know, all this stuff. So NVIDIA is actively building Linux driver support and hiring specifically for Linux gaming. That's a big one. Valve's Vex, and I made a video about this. Valve is working on something similar to Proton, which is Vex. Well, they're funding that company. They're funding those guys to work on this. More accessibility, more hardware opportunities like a smartphone. The Steam machine is launching this year. Then you have the Steam Frame, right? You've got Valve coming out with a product literally that runs on a Snapdragon chip, similar to the ones that run inside of Android phones. But honestly, all that stuff, from the performance to the clean UI to the pretty animations to just like that streamlined experience, is not the main reason why I've switched to Linux. It's simply because of ownership. I built my PC from scratch and I bought the parts, and I know you did too. And then you slap on the operating system, you buy the license, you pay for Windows, and finally when you get inside of all that login bloatware, you're presented with a bunch of just not necessary things for your computer. Brand deals that are going behind your back. Also, you guys don't have to sub if you don't want to sub. If it's your vibe, you know it's your vibe. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. Cyber Dopamine out.